it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boy's TV. Here we are.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I am, when I say I'm going to be quick, I really mean it this time. I had to share this thought with you, and it had to do with a message that a brother sent me today in my Facebook inbox. And it has to, he was sending me something about the racial wealth gap. And I want to give him a shout out, actually, because this really got me thinking about something that I've always known. His name is Clausel Mathis. This brother sent me over a stat that many of us are familiar with. It has to do with the racial wealth gap. A lot of us talk about the racial wealth gap and how to close it. A lot of people believe that it is impossible to close. You've seen articles written where they say it would take 250 years for the gap to close. Those articles, unfortunately, are written by people who don't know how to build wealth. They're also written by people who are making the false assumption that the wealth gap will close whenever white people decide that it's going to happen. So I'm not in that category. I believe that the gap will close when Black people decide it's going to happen. I believe that that it's important to learn how to build wealth. That's just what I believe. So here's what I want to dig into. Before I get started, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. And just a quick reminder, if you wonder why I talk a little bit funny, it's because I got dental work and I'm trying to get used to this thing they're doing to kind of open my bite up a little bit. So I'm just a Black man trying to be healthy. So if anybody comes in and asks about it, if you could just tell them like, okay, this is what's going on now, pay attention, that'll help. Because one of the challenges is that we have serious Black folks and then we have juvenile Black people, and I don't do well with juvenile Black folks. You know, I'm actually more into being serious and solving problems. So let me lay out this discussion with you very quickly about the racial wealth gap. Here's the deal. According to the Brookings Institute, the wealth gap between white families and Black families is basically 171,000 for white families, which is nearly 10 times greater than it is for Black families, which is 17,150. Now, this was in 2016. The numbers are not that much different from what they were back then. That's pretty much where they are. That's what people are talking about, particularly when you talk about what's going on with the, with the elections and the stolen Black wealth and reparations and all of that. A lot of that conversation centers around closing the wealth gap. If we close the wealth gap, that will be pretty huge, pretty massive. Here's the deal. Here's what I need you to understand. Now, I need you to open your mind a little bit, and I need you to agree with me on one thing. The white man is not Jesus. He is not your God. I have to start there just because I have to really help us really decompress and break out of our brainwashing a little bit. He's not Jesus. He's not God. He does not control all of this. So if we can agree on that, give me a yes in the chat. If you can agree with me that he's not God and that you actually have, maybe you got a little God inside of you, but he is not your God. Now, why do I say that? Why do I start there? Because here's something that you probably don't, I doubt that anybody's ever broken it down to you this way, but that's my job, right? You know, as a financial scientist, I'm supposed to be on the cutting edge of new ideas on some level, and that's what I'm trying to do. $171,000 as net worth is not a big amount of money for a person that is a consistent investor. Now, I want you to expand your imagination. Don't assume that I'm just, oh, he's just some rich guy who's acting like the money. And no. I was born in the projects. Some of y'all were born in the projects. I was born in the projects too. I remember eating bologna sandwiches with no bread. I know what it's like to flick a roach off your sandwich and keep on eating. I've done all of that. Right? You know, our family had to work our way up. I remember a time when we didn't have very much money. I remember what it's like to have completely empty pockets. So no matter how broke you've been, you've never been broker than me. Chances are you've never been broker than me. So this is not some rich, out of touch guy who's trying to make it sound easy. I'm not doing that. What I'm speaking as is a financial scientist who understands economic gravity in a way that most people don't get. One of the things that we do in the Black Business School, this is why the Black Business School is so special, is we actually put together something that you can actually have for free called the $5 a day investment plan. $5 a day investment plan. I put that together to help those who don't believe that Black people can accomplish anything. I did this for those who either have low self-esteem or just don't have a lot of confidence in the Black community's ability to build wealth, or who just don't understand the wealth building process, who don't understand basic things. If you compare wealth building to like traveling, right? There are some people who believe that you can only get from New York to Los Angeles on an airplane. They don't understand that you can also get there in a car, you can get there on a train, you can get there on the bus, you can get there on the bike, you can get there on foot. And so you know, for people like that who only believe that you can travel from New York to LA on a plane, then if you don't give them a plane ticket, they will assume that that means they have to sit exactly where they are. But a person who understands how to travel can say, no, actually, we can get in the car. And if we start driving now, we'll be there in 3 or 4 days. Do you follow me? Give me a yes or no in the chat if you follow me. So why is this important? Well, $171,000 as net worth. That is a number such that a person who follows the $5 a day investing plan, which almost anybody can follow. If you can afford to go to Popeye's Chicken, you can afford to invest $5 a day. If you can afford new sneakers, you can invest $5 a day. If you can afford to go to the club, you can invest $5 a day. And we know a whole lot of Black people who can afford to go to the club. We know a whole lot of Black people who can afford Gucci. That's how Gucci stays in business a lot of times. We know a lot of Black people who can go out and buy the flyest clothes at the mall, right? So if you can buy the flyest clothes, you can go to Popeye's Chicken, you can go buy Gucci, then you can invest $5 a day. Really, a lot of Black folks can actually invest $10, $15, $20 a day, because I know Black people who will spend $400, $500 a month on a car note, right? So $5 a day is $150 a month. I know people who will spend 3 times that amount on a car note. Give me a yes or no if you know about anybody in the chat who says that, if you're in the chat and you know somebody who, who says that they're broke, who says they can't build wealth, but will literally drop $400 a month on a car note. There are people out there that do that. That is absolutely interesting to me. Let me just say it's interesting. So here's my argument. My argument is, I'm not here to shame you about your car note. I'm not here to dog you about going to the club or buying nice clothes. I'm here to simply ask you to invest as much in your own future as you put into the white man's future. Invest as much into your children's future as you invest in Popeye's Chicken. I'm asking you to love yourselves as much as you love everybody else, right? Because here's the deal. If you go look at the math, and I did the math, and if you go to the Black Business School, theblackbusinessschool.com, we actually have a little class. It's really, really good. It doesn't cost that much. And it's called How to Turn Your Child into a Millionaire. It is a direct step-by-step blueprint on creating a millionaire within 1 generation, or somebody who's close to being a millionaire, somebody who's worth, $300,000 or $400,000. It's not hard to do. It's very, very simple, actually, if you know the financial science, if you understand investing. So if you're interested, if you want to go take a look, feel free, go to theblackbusinessschool.com. We got specialists right there on the site that can guide you to where you got to go. It's a great program. I think you're going to like it. We also have programs for kids and all that stuff. But let's get back to the point here. A person who just does the $5 a day investing plan, in about 20 years, they would have a net worth, assuming that they don't pick up a lot of debt. That's the key thing. You got to avoid debt. Debt is an economic sand trap. So that means you got to watch out for a lot of credit card debt. You got to watch out for ridiculous amounts of student loan debt. But literally within 20 years, that person's investment portfolio, even if they were randomly picking stocks, like blindly picking and just adding a new stock every month, like literally, like a person, literally, this has been proven through financial science. This is not me just giving you my 2 cents. It's not me just BSing you. Remember, you got to, I just keep having to remind you guys, I'm not a guy who's just talking on speculation. I had to do the math on this stuff. I was a math teacher at the University of Kentucky. So the math checks out that a person who consistently invests at the $5 a day rate, which is about $150 a month, which is not even enough to get you a decent car most of the time, that a person who does that consistently is going to have a net worth that exceeds the average white American, that exceeds the average white person. If you do it for 30 years, You're going to be well beyond the average white American. You're going to have enough money that people are going to start to hate you and think that you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. The reason I have a little bit of money now is because I've been investing my whole life. I've been investing in my education. I've been investing in assets. I've been trying to own things. I've been trying to start businesses for a long time, and that's how I got wealth. But believe me, people who feel who have an internalized victimhood, who have been led to believe that Black people cannot do anything on their own, those people are going to look at you and they're going to say, "How dare you find a solution? How dare you have a better life than me? How dare you not be in the struggle? How dare you not be oppressed?" Right? They're going to get mad at you for that. That's what's going to happen. And then when you go back and you say, I want to go help the hood. I want to go help my people. I'm going to go tell them what I did. Some of them are just going to get mad at you. They're going to say, "No, you're rich. You're a rich person. You ain't got nothing to do with it. You don't know what it's like to struggle. You don't know like they think you're born that way, and nobody's born that way. You build yourself into what you want to be." So I'm just going to tell you, this is really for the people that really are looking for solutions. If you're looking to complain, you should go somewhere else to complain, because there's plenty of Black people that love to complain about the problem. I'm a person who wants to fix the problem. I'm not going to complain about being hungry. I'm going to go get some food. I'm not going to complain about the steak being frozen. I'm going to figure out how to heat it up and cook it. So the $5 a day plan, I wish I could find the book. I give away the ebook for free. If you go to the blackbusinessschool.com, you can also ask them, just say, "Hey, there's this $5 a day book. Can I get it for free?" Also, there's that program on how to turn your child into a millionaire, or the Black Business School for Children, whatever it is you want to do. But either way, what I'm saying is that this wealth gap can be closed very easily. It can be closed individually. It can be closed as a family. Like, you can literally make a pledge right now that nobody in your family is going to have a wealth level that is lower than the average white family. Like 171,000. Now pay attention now. This is average white family net worth. Family. If you do what I tell you, you can do that. Every person in your family within 20 years can have more wealth than the average white family. So that means if you got 5 members of your family and all of you are worth $200,000 a piece, that's $1 million worth of net worth. The average white family is at 171. So you can close the wealth gap very easily on your own. You can close the wealth gap very easily as a family. And if I was able to, I can't do this. I don't have the power to do this. I wish I had a big platform like my friend Ice Cube. He has millions of people watching. I wish I had millions of people that would listen to this, but I don't have that. I have a few 100,000. But if I got everybody on the same page with that, like if we could get just 20% of the Black community to follow that agenda, to just consistently invest, no matter what, like it's a religion, we would close the wealth gap significantly within one generation. And actually, a lot of Black people would actually be beyond where white people are. And then you have a new set of problems. Your next problem will be that they would start to dislike you. Similar to what sometimes the Jewish community, because they teach wealth so much, they end up accumulating all the resources, and then people get mad at them because they're rich. They're like, "Oh, they own all the buildings, they own all the property, they own all the assets, they own all the businesses." Right? Well, that's a mindset. That's a mindset. The mindset is ownership, asset accumulation, etc. In fact, let me just say this, and then I'll be done. If we committed our children as much to wealth building and making money as we commit to playing basketball and playing football, if we committed as much energy to wealth building as we put into sports, which generates almost nothing for the community except for a select few, one guy out of 10,000 gets a big contract, so the other 9,999 are trying to get the same thing, and they all end up broke. Well, a bunch of them do. If we committed as much energy to wealth building as we put into sports, then actually Black people would have many millions of Black people would have far more wealth than the typical white community. In fact, actually, if you really go hard with that plan, like, so for example, like I said, there are some people that have car notes that are $400 a month. If you put as much money into your stock portfolio as you put into a car note, let's say $400 a month, which would be approximately, maybe let's say $10 to $15 a day on average, then you would end up having hundreds of thousands of dollars in net worth, as long as you don't accumulate too much debt. That's why student loans, you got to be real careful about that, because that's a huge economic trap. A lot of Black wealth is going backward I've analyzed this and I've said it before and I'm gonna say it again. A lot of your wealth is going backward because you have people that think they're going forward, but they're really not. A lot of your wealth is going backward because your wealth is supposed to be accumulated by the most educated people in your community. But unfortunately, the most educated people in your community are acquiring so much debt that it's weighing them down financially. And they're not picking up the skill sets necessary to actually go out and start businesses and really make the big money. The big money, the multimillionaires and billionaires don't have jobs. Like there's no job I can think of that pays you, $250,000 a month, right? There's no job out there like that unless you're playing for the Dallas Mavericks. So the fact that we have the whole community of job seekers who go deep into student loan debt just so they can get a better job and then have no skills for asset accumulation or business acquisition is exactly what's pulling the wealth down. So then you have to go and you have to challenge the way Black people are being educated, even at some of our HBCUs. You have to consciously ask, how many of these young people are being taught to run businesses versus how many of these young people are being taught to go look for a job, right? If you look, and I'm just telling you that's what's happening in America. That's why you have rich people, and that's why you have people who are not rich. It doesn't mean that poor people are bad, but it also doesn't mean all rich people are bad. Maybe you could say poor people are different from rich people. Rich people are different from poor people. And a lot of that comes back to mindset, right? So give your children the greatest gift you can give them by giving them a wealth builder's mindset. When you talk about that gap, that wealth gap, again, like I said, it's almost like the way my mind sees it, I go back to basic equations in physics, like distance equals rate times time, right? So when I see the wealth gap, I see a physical gap. I see a distance. Like if I'm in Chicago and there's a gap between here and LA, right? So I look at that gap and I say, how do we close that gap? How do I get to LA? Right? Some people only know one mode of transportation. They only know how to get on an airplane. They think the only way I can get to California is if I get on a plane. Well, I compare that to Black people who think that the only way the wealth gap can be closed is if white people decide they're going to close it. If white people pass a law, write a check for reparations, then it'll close. When white people start offering better jobs, then it'll close. That's one method that will certainly make it easier, right? It would be easier to get to LA if I have an airplane, right? But that gap, that distance, that cat can be skinned in a multitude of ways. I can get to LA on a helicopter. I can get to LA in a truck. I can get to LA on a bus. I can get to LA on a motorcycle. I can get to LA on a 10-speed. I can get to LA on foot. I can get to LA on foot. And so a determined person who is traveling on foot will go further than an undetermined person who spends 20 years waiting for a plane ticket. If you just start walking now, then you'll get there. So what I'm saying is that this wealth gap, which I want you to visualize it as like the gap between Chicago and Los Angeles, this wealth gap is something where we're sitting here politely waiting for white people to bring us a plane ticket. We're sitting here and we're saying we deserve a plane ticket because of what we've gone through, and we deserve a plane ticket because this gap is atrocious. We deserve a plane ticket because you owe us, and they do. Absolutely, they completely do. But I don't know if that ticket's coming anytime soon. I really don't. And what I would encourage you to consider is that, God gave you feet for a reason. He gave you legs for a reason. And some of y'all got more than legs. Some of y'all got a Corvette in the garage. Some of y'all might have a chopper that you can hop on. Some of y'all got a bus pass. So what I'm saying to you is I want everybody in here to just imagine this. We're trying to close that gap. And I want you to just kind of join me and say, you know what? The plane ticket probably isn't coming anytime soon. So I want everybody to just agree with me that you're going to at least go get a bus pass. Let's all go down to the bus station, to the Greyhound station, and let's get us a bus pass so that while we're waiting for our plane ticket, we're going to be traveling down the road. And if it takes long enough for the plane ticket to arrive, then that's okay, because by that time we will have traveled to LA and then gone all the way back across the country. Instead of traveling 2,000 miles, maybe we travel 5,000 miles by the time that happens. So at the end of the day, what I'm really trying to tell you is that white people are not God. They are not the only be all end all to you achieving your goal. They're not the only way. It's like when they go to church and they tell you that Jesus is the only way to get to God. Well, white people are not the only way for you to get to wealth. Like you can actually get wealth by just taking what you have. You got 1.3 trillion to work with. A lot of your families, I put together the math on the $5 a day program. You can make it a $10 a day, $20 a day. That only accelerates it. Somebody who does that consistently will be in such a good position that by the time the reparations checks come out, they won't even need the money. They won't even need the money. So that's what I wanted to share. It was something that just really hit me almost like a lightning bolt. It's like I've always known what the gap is. I've always known how much it is. And I said, maybe I could just make a quick appeal and help people understand that the distance between 171,000 and 17K it's not that big if you have a whole generation to make up the distance. It's not that big. I mean, what's 171 minus 17? Let me do the math, Josh. Was it 154? So $154,000 as a net worth. Do you know how many millions of Black people there are who have acquired far more wealth than that? Just take somebody who buys a house, who bought a house, 20 years ago for 150 grand, and now the house is worth $500,000. Well, that person now has more wealth than the average white person. It's not calculus. This ain't some insurmountable. You ain't trying to end slavery. You're not trying to solve the equations your ancestors had to solve. Your ancestors was like sitting, in 1784, trying to figure out how am I going to get away from this slavery thing? How am I going to figure out how to go get far enough north to go to Canada, right? How do I follow the North Star and not get shot and ate up by dogs on my way and starve to death, right? They have real problems. You don't have a real problem. You don't have a real problem. Your path is right there in front of you. And maybe if you want to, you can think of me as your financial Harriet Tubman. Maybe I'm a little bit like Harriet, because I don't have much patience. I will shoot you if you get out of line. If you come in, trifling Negroes get shot up in our platform. That means I'll put you out and you're out forever. But for those who are serious, I know the way. I know the way. Not only have I traveled this path 1,000 times, but I've studied it like a scientist. And I know exactly what to do, what to avoid, and how to make sure master doesn't kill you. So that's all I want to say. I'm done. It just hit me, and I know I talk a lot, but I hope that this helps you, because you guys, I mean, this is doable. This is all doable, and I do believe we can do anything. But this isn't even the hardest thing that Black people have to confront, to deal with. Closing the wealth gap, actually, honestly, again, let's say I became the coolest person on the planet for about 2 years. And let's say I became like a really famous rapper or something, because we only listen to rappers, we don't listen to scholars. That's one of the reasons why we fall behind, honestly. So let's say I became the coolest, most significant rapper in America, and everybody followed the advice of Dr. Boyce. And I said, I need y'all to do one thing. I need every family to do something similar to the $5 a day investment program. And let's say that everybody did it. Let's say every family that can afford Popeye's chicken put the same amount of money after they bought their chicken, they would go buy their shares of stock. And everybody did the same thing. I promise you that within one generation, the wealth gap would either shrink significantly, or it might disappear altogether. Because the other thing that you forget, because I'm gonna definitely save the life. The other thing you forget, as you put white people on this magical pedestal like they can do nothing wrong, is that white people are not perfect either with their money. They're not perfect with their resources. There are lots of millions of white families that that inherit money and lose all their money within a generation, because they have some of the same ridiculous consumer habits that a lot of us do. So stop thinking white people are perfect and wonderful and they have it all together, because they really don't. They really don't. So if you come in and you're smarter and you're sharper and you know where the money is, and your kids kind of know how to acquire resources and acquire property, they can go in and clean up. They can clean up, just like the Chinese. The Chinese are cleaning up in the United States because they have a wealth strategy that allows them to benefit significantly from American economic extravagance, right? Like, Americans are just bad with money, just generally speaking. I'll say that, I'm gonna tell a story, then I'm gonna be done. I did a research stint in 2006 with the Center for European Economic Research. When I was at Syracuse, I did a summer there where I was writing research papers in Europe with these Germans. And when I was working in my office, and one of my colleagues came in and he asked me, he said, "What is wrong?" He said, what is wrong with you Americans?" And I was like, "I don't know. What's wrong with you?" Like, I didn't know what he was talking about. And he said, "I was looking at the data, and in Germany, we make less money than you do. We pay more in taxes than you do, but we save 5 times more than you do. And he wasn't talking about Black people. He was talking about Americans. And that was when it hit me. I said, my God, like Americans, we are really bad with money. We don't save the way we should. We overspend. Corporations, it all comes from how you're educated. You're poorly educated. The public school system is crap. And then on top of that, you're they put a credit card in your mouth, and then you just spend that sucker all day because that's what you think you're supposed to do. And next thing you know, you're in these horrible financial straits and you don't know exactly how you got there. Just know that that's not the only way. There are other countries where they have a completely different view on their finances than we have in the United States. So I encourage you, just get off the grid, get off the nonsense grid, be smarter, think about your family. And when it comes to your family, you can close that wealth gap like that. Some of y'all are probably already there. Some of you already have over $200,000 in net worth or whatever. Those of you who are not there yet, just take my word for it. Be a consistent investor. Never waste more than you invest, right? So if you're dropping if you're making it rain over here in the left hand, just make sure you're investing with the right hand. It's okay to make it rain. It's okay to enjoy your money. It's okay to buy Jordans or a new car, whatever that you want to get. I'm not going to judge that. In fact, I think you should enjoy your life. You should enjoy your money. The problem is when you don't handle your business first. Just handle your business. It should be as serious. Investing should be as serious to you as tithing is to a Christian that goes to church. They tell you every week 10%, to the Lord, or 10% to the pastor, or whatever it is. Well, you should be tithing to yourself. So maybe that would be a good way to go. Just say, I'm going to tithe to my future. I'm going to tithe to my family. My religion is Black economic power. And every single day or every week, I'm going to do whatever I can. I might not be able to do what I want, but I can always do what I can. You understand? So don't always, you may not be able to do what you want, but at least do what you can. Okay. All right. Do we got it? Make sense? Give me a yes or no if you get what I'm saying here. I'm going to go. Do me a favor if you're watching online. Please hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please do that. Also, a reminder, the All Black National Convention starts this week. If you want to learn more, go to allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. Thirdly, if you want to take a look at our program for children on how to build wealth in children, I'm a big believer that if you teach your kids now, they're going to be light years ahead of everybody else. They're not going to have the same problems that the community's having. They're actually going to be the wealth builders of the future. They're going to be really successful, really secure, and very happy. Feel free to take a look at our children's program. It's very good. It's blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. That's blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. And they can get a little certificate they can put on their wall, almost like a college degree. And they get to say they graduated from the Black Business School, which is really, really beneficial for their self-esteem. So anyway, guys, I'm out of here. Thank you for bearing with me as I talk funny because I'm trying to get used to what they're doing in my mouth. They're literally stretching out my mouth. That's why I end up talking kind of weird. But just know in about maybe 6 weeks or so, I'll have a smile like Denzel Washington. So maybe it'll be all worth it. So take care, guys. Love you. And have a great day. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.
Hi everyone, this is Lawrence Watkins, and welcome to the Financial Juneteenth 5. These are my 5 favorite articles as it relates to Black finance, wealth, and business for today, October 19th, 2020. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first article today comes from the Houston Chronicle, and it is entitled Business Friendly Houston, Not Always Free Market for Black Communities, History Shows. And it digs deep into some of the history in regards to business of the city of Houston and how blacks were often marginalized from having the same economic opportunities as whites and other people who were actually in the city. So, unfortunately, there is a paywall up for this site, and I do not have a subscription to the Houston Chronicle yet. But since I'll be moving there next year, I'll go ahead and get one soon. So, I'll just have to read this article through my Feedly account. Yeah, it's very interesting. So the article starts off saying, but according to interviews with historians, sociologists, and economists, the markets that built Houston were never fully free at all, at least not for black residents. Job discrimination met black workers when thousands of them arrived in Houston during the Great Migration of the early 20th century. Redlining during the 1940s starved black homeowners in business of credit. Segregation prevented full participation in the economy. Environmental contamination disproportionately sickened black neighborhoods. And the rest of the article really goes into detail with all of these different areas in terms of redlining, segregation, and also environmental contamination. There was a good quote in here from Bernadette Pruitt. She's an assistant professor of history at Sam Houston State University. She states, "People say we are all equal now, so everybody's got the same shot. But is that really true? When you look at the country, the free enterprise, that's been true for some people, but not for everyone. A lot of people are playing catch up." So the article goes on to talk about the broken economic ladder. It states, remaining in the South instead of heading to the North meant staying in a region where racist violence was rampant, Pruitt says. But black migrants risked it to keep families intact, find jobs, and chart a path forward towards financial security. Black laborers, however, found they were excluded from more lucrative blue-collar jobs at refineries, steel foundries, and construction companies. They were hired for more dangerous jobs in manufacturing, shipping, and railroads, performing grueling work at lower pay than their white peers. Middle-class black men and women struggled to break into skilled jobs, even if they had college degrees. At times, black professionals faced violence when they took jobs, such as firefighters and engineers, Pruitt said. We hear about this, all over the place. And even though this article is specifically talking about Houston, we hear the same types of stories in cities all across America in terms of how systemic racism really affected the lives and still does currently affect the lives of Black Americans. In the 1930s and 40s, the federal government began offering loans to help low and middle income people buy homes, but restricted the lending to certain areas through the practice known as redlining. So we're very familiar with redlining. Black families were entitled to benefits of the GI Bills and other programs, but often prevented from obtaining them due to discriminatory practices. Oak Forest, northwest of the Heights, was the first government-backed development in Houston to exclude people of color, according to research by Texas Housers, a local nonprofit. So I found this article to be extremely interesting, even when it was talking about some of the environmental factors, what they call the smell of money, in regards to the refineries that are in the city. But of course, most of those refineries were in Black neighborhoods. So it says, here's a stat. Black people, here we go. Yeah, Black people on average are exposed to 56% more air pollution that leads to heart and breathing deaths than they create, according to the 2019 study published in the National Academy of Sciences. Non-Hispanic white are on average exposed to 17% less air pollution than they actually cause. I would highly suggest you reading this article if you have a subscription to the Houston Chronicle. Otherwise, this was a good summary in regards to what it's talking about and what people, you hear, just politicians in general, but there's this American ethos that there's a free market. But as you really take a deeper dive and a deeper look at history, we know that it's not always free for everyone involved. And this shows you why policy matters and politics matters when it comes to economics, but also as it relates to just the well-being of our different communities. So check that out in the Houston Chronicle. The second article today is a press release. So it states Multicultural Food Service and Hospitality Alliance, Fourth Movement, I think that's how you pronounce it, and PepsiCo collaborate to increase pathways to Black franchise ownership. So this is a good opportunity for anyone who is watching this. I was actually on an interview, or excuse me, on a panel with the brother of the Fourth Movement CEO, or I guess the brother of the person who leads up this Fourth Movement organization. So the Webb family. So shout out to the Webb family in Los Angeles. But the article states today, the Multicultural Food Service and Hospitality Alliance, Fourth Movement, and PepsiCo announced a formal collaboration to provide leadership development and increase business ownership opportunities for Black people in the restaurant industry. Together, they are launching the Pathways to Black Franchise Ownership program, an innovative personal development training initiative that equips potential business owners to operate high-performing businesses. So here's the interesting stat. Recent data shows that only 8% of restaurants are owned by Black people. The program's goal is to create 100 Black franchise restaurants by the end of 2020, and to continue growing at that number. There was a quote in here from, so this is the president and founder of MFHA. So I want to get to this quote by Kareem Webb of Fourth Movement. Okay, actually, before that, PepsiCo is the founding sponsor, committing $2.5 billion over the next 5 years. So that's about $500,000 a year to this effort. And Kareem states, through this collaboration, will help hundreds of people become business owners who otherwise, in all likelihood, wouldn't have had the resources to do so. These folks will experience improved outcomes for themselves and their families, enabling them to become civically engaged leaders in communities across America. This growth will benefit us all. So if you want to learn more about this organization and this opportunity for pathways to Black franchise ownership, please visit mfha.net. That's mfha.net. And you will learn more. So I'll do my best to get Kareem on here to talk to you all directly regarding this program, but I think it's a good opportunity for everyone listening today. The next article comes from Amsterdam News, which I believe is a Black-owned newspaper in New York City. So it states, Black Super PAC urges candidates and parties to spend millions with Black businesses. So I believe this is a Republican Super PAC that is leading this initiative. So it states, one of America's leading Black conservative political action committee has instituted a national effort to help Black-owned businesses earn some of the billions of dollars spent during America's political campaigns as the 2020 election year hits the home stretch. Black PAC, a federally registered super PAC, is spearheading an initiative urging all candidates, political parties, political action committees, and donors to take the Art Fletcher pledge to commit to spending 10% of their funding, revenues, or both with Black-owned and or businesses and financial institutions. So the Black PAC chairman is a guy by the name of George Farrell. George stated, any candidate, Democrat, Republican, or independent, that cannot execute the ability to spend 10% of campaign funds with Black businesses cannot be trusted to operate honestly as an elected government official and should not earn our votes. So that's a very strong statement. I think it's a true statement as well. The plan required federal. Oh, okay, yeah. This is actually a little history about the guy or the man that the plan is named after the Art Fletcher. So his name is Art Fletcher. He was the former assistant secretary of the U.S. Department of Labor in the Nixon administration. Fletcher was a Black Republican and a lifelong civil rights activist, referred to himself as the father of affirmative action enforcement for his work with the 1969 Philadelphia Plan. So I did not know very much about this plan. I knew about, I guess, as it relates to Nixon and what we see as affirmative action right now, how it was really structured under that Republican president as a way to push back against, all of the civil unrest of the 1960s. So the plan The plan required federal government contractors in Philadelphia's construction trades to set goals and timetables for hiring minority workers. It gave the business autonomy on how to increase minority employment. However, if the goals were not reached, the contracts would be terminated by the federal government. I did not know much about in regards to Art Fletcher and his conservative plan back then. But if you want to know more about what they're doing with the Black Pact, I think you can visit blackpack.gop to actually learn more and actually sign the pledge if this is something up your alley. The next article comes from Skift. So Skift is a major news player in the travel industry. And the title of the article is Black History and Cultural Attractions Still Looking for Corporate Donors to Match All the Black Lives Matter Rhetoric. Basically, of course, just like everything else, now nearly 5 months after the killing of George Floyd, Black history and cultural institutions in the United States that draw tourists from all over the globe say the support from donations has been anything but consistent. And this is a quote by Bridget Jones. She's the curator of social history at Tennessee State Museum. She says one of the biggest issues we see right now is the misinformation and miseducation of non-minority populations. When you look at our erasure from history, from the literary movement, the classical music movement, and then you add physical erasure with what you see from the police, what you see is America's true relationship with Black Americans, and it's that of a stepchild. So basically, you have a lot of people in the arts talking about how they're not, people or these organizations and corporations have continually talked about Black Lives Matter, that type of thing, but many haven't put their pocketbooks where their collective mouth is. So there's a quote in here a little later from Black American West Museum chairperson Daphne Rice Allen. She's kind of being a little bit of I'm not gonna say apologist, but yeah, just trying to think through some of the reasons why corporations aren't as committed as their words were talking. She stated, corporations are probably trying to deal with their own BLM internal issues. So the art industry, just like the tourism industry, is probably going to have to support itself in terms of social justice. This is interesting article. There's a quote that ended the article that says a 2018 Mandela research study claims that African Americans contribute a whopping $63 billion to the American travel and tourism economy and are more likely to travel to a location connected to their heritage. All right, so check this out on skift.com. Of course, the link is in the description for this article as well. The last article comes from Nebraska's PBS and NPR stations. So I have no idea how I found this article, but I'm glad I did. And I think it's a good way to tie in today's discussions in terms of the articles, especially as it relates to the first one we discussed today about Houston and its lack of free market. So this says, why are there so few Black farmers in the Midwest? Yeah, so it's talking about a couple of different families. So one is Charles Downs, who runs one of, I guess, a farming stand, who brought it from the Stepp family, which was a Black family before the Civil War, I believe, a Black family that was farming. I believe they're talking about Iowa, so I'm not sure if they're talking about Iowa or Nebraska. But anyway, there's this Black family in the Midwest. So by 1900, Iowa had about 300 African-American farm families in various parts of the state. But in 1970, that number had dropped to about 175 families. David Broadnax, he's a professor at Trinity Christian College. I think he had a quote in here. Well, actually, before we get to his quote, some scholars have suggested that farming, especially in the Great Plains, function as one step on a path towards economic independence that would allow future generations to thrive in other places, with the land passing out of the family as everyone migrated to urban and suburban places. So Broadnex had a quote in here. There's definitely disagreement within the Black community about the importance of land as economic power and its importance on farming or of farming. There's definitely a strong sense among some African Americans that we need land, we need economic power in this country, and land is power. I definitely do agree with that. I don't know if there's too much disagreement with regards to, I guess, land being power. I think more than that, there's just you know misinformation and people not being informed in terms of how important land actually is as it relates to power within the United States. So there's some additional quotes in here. But Black farmers repeatedly faced discrimination that prevented them from getting appropriate loans and being able to keep up with the pace of modernization. So, of course, that's a continuation of the story that we have talked about just throughout the weeks with the FJT5. There's another reason why I guess, a lack of Black farmers as well. So for the Steps family, so reading right here, for the Stepp family and others, something else contributed to the end of their time as Black farmers, and that is assimilation. Jeffrey Schmick, Cheryl Patterson, and Brian Stepp, all of who identify as white, started researching the small cemetery where their grandfather is buried just down the road from the melon stand, right? So, after a few generations, I guess they assimilated into whiteness. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges and problems with integration is the loss of Black culture. Schmick said, so I believe it's Jeff Schmick, who is the grandson of the Black man who started the farm. There was quite a bit more talk about our Indian heritage than there was our Black heritage. So, that's just some interesting some interesting perspective in regards to what's really going on. The article ended by saying, but Broadnex, the historian, says amid renewed calls for economic empowerment, farmland ownership hasn't risen to the same level as supporting Black businesses. What I haven't seen is that being addressed from a perspective of farming and land ownership. So what I haven't seen is that being addressed, from a perspective of farming and Black ownership. So nobody's really talking about, renewed calls for economic empowerment, farmland ownership in terms of, supporting Black, businesses. Not saying that no one has said that, but it definitely doesn't seem to be a big part of the conversation in 2020. So that came from the Nebraska Public Radio and PBS stations as well. So, all right. So that's my 5 favorite articles today in our Financial Juneteenth 5 for today. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe before you get out of here. Also, like I said, this is still a test run of the FJT5. So if you like this segment, please go ahead and mention that in the comments. If you want to see me improve in some sort of way as it relates to delivering this type of news and information to you, let me know that as well. But on behalf of Financial Juneteenth, my name is Lawrence Watkins. Take care, be blessed, and have a wonderful day. All right, bye-bye. Hi, everyone. This is Lawrence Watkins, and welcome to the Financial Juneteenth 5. These are my 5 favorite articles as it relates to Black finance, wealth, and business for today, October 21st, 2020. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. So the first article today is an inspiring story about Black entrepreneurship. So it's following a brother by the name of Mark Wilson, and he is the CEO of Chime Solutions, based, I believe, in Atlanta, Georgia, or at least he has an office there. But the title of the article states, "A company turns millions in profits, bringing call center jobs to Black communities." So in the subtitle is, "There is so much talent that gets left behind," says Chime Solutions CEO Mark Wilson. So their strategy is to bring the jobs to the people. And I really love reading this story because A, it's just good news, and B, it shows the value of entrepreneurship to the Black community. The article started talking about a woman by the name of Taylor Pride. She was, talking through, she's a mother of 4, she's 26 years old, and really felt like she didn't have any future. But she eventually came across Chime Solutions and was hired and became a great employee at the Redbird Mall. Now it's called the Southwest Center Mall, I believe in Atlanta, Georgia. And this company employs 500 residents from the community at this particular call center. So she has a quote here that says, "They could have gone anywhere with their business, but they came here because these people are the people who need the help the most." Pride, who was hired by the company, is one of several that crystallize the ideals of Chime Solutions, a Black-owned company that provides outsourcing services for small businesses as well as some Fortune 500 companies. All right, there's a picture of Taylor. So it talks about CEO Mark Wilson. He has a quote in here that states, "Our primary focus is to address the issue of economic mobility, creating opportunities in under-resourced communities. To achieve that, Wilson set a goal of creating 10,000 jobs across 10 cities, in all communities with a significant Black population." There was a good stat in here that says Chime employs 1,500 people there. I believe that's in Atlanta, Georgia, and overwhelmingly number of them are Black, and most from Clayton County, where the company had been expected to generate about $87 million in sales per year in 2016. And I believe a lot of this was sourced from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He actually started the business or runs the business with his wife, Shelly Wilson, who is a microbiologist by trade, but now he is the COO of the company. The couple started a customer service and outsourcing business called RYLA Teleservices out of the basement of their home and eventually sold the business in 2010 for a reported $70 million. With Chime, their goal is to bring jobs back to Black communities. So here it talks about let's see, Dallas and Charlotte, North Carolina. So the model is the same in Dallas and Charlotte, where Wilson recently employed 250 workers in an underserved community with plans for more hires. Next up are Baltimore and Detroit, he said. 5 other cities will be added over time with a goal of 1,000 jobs created per city for those living in underserved communities. Wilson also has another quote in here. He states, there is a lot to what we're trying to accomplish. We're doing business as a Black-owned company, creating jobs for Blacks, using the multiplier effect, meaning for every job you create, another is created. And it is money spent in the community. So shout out to Mark Wilson. I also wanted to share a story of Mason Parker, who was actually hired by Mr. Wilson and the Chime Solutions company. And in here, he has a quote that I thought was just indicative of the type of impact that entrepreneurship can have in our community. So it states, Parker started out as a call center representative and in 11 months was promoted to service delivery manager. My job search had been unrewarding, but Chime has also allowed me upward mobility, which I wanted, and I don't have to manage who I am on the job the way that you have to as Blacks on other jobs. One day I ended a phone conversation saying, "That's dope," and no one said anything. That was so refreshing. I am allowed to let my personality shine, and it's embraced and appreciated. You don't get that everywhere and almost nowhere. I really like this story, and I thought this was a good place to start out. We often talk about Black entrepreneurship, but a lot of times I don't think that we actually see the impact of having large-scale Black entrepreneurs and large-scale Black companies out here in the workforce, and the impact and change that it can have in our communities as well. The next article comes from Axios. Let me make that a little bit bigger. It says, corporate redlining has cost Black neighborhoods millions, and it was written by Dion Rabon. I did not know how to pronounce his last name. I see his name often, so I need to do some more research and maybe reach out to that brother as well. So it starts off with an important stat. The number of SBA loans to Black-owned businesses has decreased 84% from its peak before the 2008 financial crisis, according to a new report from the Business Journals, citing lending data from the agency's flagship 7A program. Overall, 7A loans declined 53% during that time. And this matters, and the main point of this article is the precipitous decline in loans to Black-owned businesses in particular was despite 48% growth in the economy, a 101% increase in bank deposits, and an 82% jump in commercial loans, the report notes. White neighborhoods receive roughly twice as much per person in small business loans compared to Black neighborhoods, the data show. Likewise, majority white neighborhoods on average receive roughly twice as many small business loans per capita as well. So the big picture, experts say the data underscore the way bank and government policy has exacerbated racial disparities in wealth generation, home ownership rates, educational attainment, and other measures of financial equality. And it has a quote in here from Orv Kimbrough. I'm not exactly sure who this man is, but he's the CEO of Midwest Bank Center. I wonder if he's related to Dennis Kimbrough or Walter Kimbrough or any of the other Kimbroughs that are out there. But anyway, he calls it corporate redlining. I think that's an interesting way to look at it. So we know about redlining from a real estate and housing perspective, but the way that loans are divvied up to small businesses, he's calling that corporate redlining. So this is just a something to kind of keep track of and for us to continue to improve on over time as well. The next article is a press release that comes from Management Leadership for Tomorrow, which is an organization that is near and dear to my heart. It's the reason why I was accepted and went to some of the top business schools in the country, and I owe a large portion of of that to MLT and its impact in terms of the admissions process for me. But it states Management Leadership for Tomorrow launches first of its kind standard setting certification to drive action and accountability on Black equity in corporate America. So it starts off by saying Management Leadership for Tomorrow. So MLT announced a first of its kind certification, the MLT Black Equity at Work, which establishes a clear and comprehensive Black equity standard for employers. The certification provides the roadmap needed to enable employers to take a systematic, results-oriented approach towards achieving Black equity. Becoming MLT Black Equity at Work certified requires employers to take the same results-oriented approach with Black equity as they do with quarterly earnings and other core business priorities. So the press release mentioned some of the companies that have already signed up to be a part of this initiative. These include Amazon, Bain Capital, BCG, so Boston Consulting Group, Moody's, PNC Bank, let's see what else is here, Viacom and CBS, Walker and Dunlop, Warner Media, and also Workday, as well as some other companies as well. There's a quote in here from John Rice, who is the CEO of MLT. We are in an extraordinary moment where business and social sector leaders have unprecedented levels of conviction to take bold steps to expand economic and career mobility outcomes for Black people. Only by defining a standard and showing companies how to deliver measurable results on Black equity can we start to raise the bar for racial equity in the workplace. And the initiative focuses on three core areas. So people, purchasing, and philanthropy. And that's broken down across 5 pillars: Black representation at every level, compensation equity, inclusive anti-racist work environment, racially just business practices, and racial justice contributions and investments as well. Please be on the lookout. So if you work for a large corporation who may be interested in this type of certification, please reach out to MLT, and I'm sure they can get your corporate partners in the corporation that you may work for on board as well to this initiative. The next article is also a press release from Cision, but it's about the Nielsen, the company Nielsen released a report. So Nielsen's 10th year African American Consumer Report explores the power of the Black community from moment to movement. Data shows African Americans have increasing cultural, economic, and political influence. So the report's name is The Power of the Black Community from Moment to Movement. The report states, this is the core of the art, or the core of the article. Black influence on the economy and pop culture continues to drive not only significant moments in history, but drive change across industries and digital platforms. So there's a quote here from Cheryl Grace, the Senior VP of Consumer Insights and Engagement at Nielsen. African Americans are calling out systemic racism while at the same time creating opportunities for growth across social platforms and businesses with various levels of innovation. African Americans have historically navigated these imperfect structures, but the current global reckoning brought on by a unique confluence of moments proves the power of the Black community and its incredible influence. And after that, they listed some of the key findings. Some of these findings include, here's the first one. There has been an overall increase in buying power across the community and also what African Americans are buying. The next, in the last decade, there have been more successful Black brands, Black-owned businesses, and investment in expanded economic opportunities for African Americans. Here are some interesting stats regarding this key point. African Americans are nearly 3 times as likely to take to social media to show support for their favorite companies and brands. Also, African Americans are now 58% more likely to expect the brands that they buy from to take a stance on issues and 37% more likely to buy a brand when they actually do. One of the other key points are the high usage levels or usage rates of podcasts in the African American community. So podcasts have become a central stage for Black voices. In a typical week, almost 49% of African American podcast listeners spend about 1 to 4 hours listening to podcasts. And of course, you can put me in that group. Actually, probably preparing for this segment, I actually probably listened to more than 1 to 4. And of course, the link will be in the description. The last article today comes from, hopefully they didn't lose my notes. No, okay, great. The last article today comes from Fast Company. It states, the 100K pledge is tracking the progress of corporate commitments to Black economic justice. So this was, so 100K pledge is another type of thing that corporations are doing. It was actually started by Vijay Chatta, founder and CEO of communications with his firm VSC. I'm not too familiar with this firm, but he launched the 100K pledge. He launched the 100K pledge, a platform to both inspire more people to commit to helping the Black community's economic empowerment and a way to track such commitments from both individuals and corporations. He has a quote that states, it's a 2-pillar approach. One is to get more professionals to commit to something, even if it's relatively small. And the second is to track bigger organizations so we can hold them accountable. So we actually see this quite a bit. I'm noticing a lot of individuals that are outside of the Black community trying to do something using their skill sets to really help the problem of racial inequities and strive for racial justice, especially within corporate America. And I want to know what you all think about that. Do you think this is overall a good thing to have more allies in this type of way? Or do you think that, I guess, Black people should really be trying to go at this alone and shape and structure the conversation? So let me know in the comments what you think about that, because on this channel and other places that I've seen, I see a mixed reaction when I bring up something like that as well. But anyway, back to the article. The 100K pledge was a way to get more people, besides only CEOs and billionaires, on board with creating change. The 100K Pledge website lets people commit to dedicating at least $100,000 to Black economic empowerment over 10 years, either by creating hiring opportunities for Black talent, investing in Black-owned businesses and venture funds, or by directly donating to scholarships, organizations working on advancing economic opportunity in Black-owned businesses and entrepreneurs as well. He says, I call it social justice for the LinkedIn demographic. So Chata, that's what he said. It's the group of people that are professionals that want to make change and are not necessarily always feeling like part of the change happening at the corporate level. I'll skip this last quote. But if you would like to know more, I'm not exactly sure if it mentions the website for the 100K Pledge. Here we go. It looks like there's a form right here. So the website is the 100kpledge.com. And in the article, there's a form if you have your organization or individuals who actually want to take a pledge. Oh, actually, I will go back and read this because I think this is important to note regarding this particular article is that this organization, is that it's leaning more towards individual action instead of corporate action. So it's looking to make it easy for individuals to make pledges and make promises and take action as it relates to Black economic advancement. So the last part of this paragraph states, when a company makes a promise, management might change or someone might get a new job, and that doesn't help them make an individual difference. There needs to be some way for individuals to do important things with the power they have as professionals rather than always tied to the corporation. All right, so maybe I'll try to get Mr. Chata on the Black Financial Channel or the Financial Juneteenth channel to talk a little bit more about what he's actually doing. But that's it for today. So those are my top 5 stories as it relates to Black finance, wealth, and business in the Financial Juneteenth 5. Please let me know what you thought about today's stories and let me know what you think about the segment in general. Before you get out of here, make sure that you press the thumbs up button. Also, make sure that you share and subscribe to the Financial Juneteenth channel to get more news like the news that I'm delivering in this daily segment as well. So on behalf of the Black Financial Channel, my name is Lawrence Watkins. Take care, be blessed, and have a wonderful day. All right, bye-bye. Hi, everyone. This is Lawrence Watkins, and welcome to the Financial Juneteenth 5. These are my 5 favorite articles as it relates to Black finance, wealth, and business for today, October 20th, 2020. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first article today comes from Black Enterprise. So the article is talking about Shopify, and it states, Shopify and Operation Hope to create 1 million Black businesses in 5 years. So the article is talking about Operation Hope, one of the leading financial and economic empowerment groups serving African Americans, has teamed up with global e-commerce powerhouse Shopify to create 1 million Black-owned businesses in the next 5 years. So it states, John Hope Bryant, the organization's president and CEO, announced today the Hope 1 Million New Black Business and New Black Entrepreneurship Initiative, so 1MBBB, I think it's called for short, and its goal to develop multitudes of new Black-owned firms throughout the nation in the U.S. by the year 2030. To achieve this bold mission, Operation Hope will work closely with Canada's largest publicly traded company, which estimates the value of its commitment at $130 million over the course of the initiative. And I believe most of that money will be through in-kind donations, if I read the last paragraph correctly. So 1MBB provides a wide range of services, including creating or modifying a business plan, providing one-on-one small business coaching, and getting advice from experts in a variety of areas. There's some other things that they're doing with this initiative as well. There was a good quote in here from Shopify President Harley Finkelstein. He states, by collaborating with Operation Hope and working together on our shared passion for helping underserved communities succeed, We believe we can help unlock even more economic opportunities for Black business owners across the country, leading to greater choices for shoppers everywhere. Let's see here. I think John Hope Bryant had a quote in here as well. I think here it is. It states, creating generational wealth through the creation of new Black businesses and Black entrepreneurs is a direct gateway to social justice. The creation of ownership, jobs, and opportunity in a generation helps to strengthen democracy and ensure freedom through self-determination. This is empowerment at scale. So congratulations to the Hope Foundation, Operation Hope, as well as Shopify for this initiative. Later on in the article somewhere, here we go. Here's at the bottom of the article, they give a link where you can go to find out more about this initiative. It's just www.hope1mbb.com. That's hope, the number one, mbb.com to learn more. The next article comes from Impact Alpha, and this is a site I believe is popular, but I haven't really looked at in the past. But looking at it and reading some of their content, I think it's one of my future sources for articles moving forward. So the title of this article is How Corporations Can Make Good on Their Racial Equity Pledges. And it's written by, I believe, this man, Bill Bynum, who is the CEO of Hope Credit Union. I can't remember what state he's in. I want to say like Mississippi or something like that. But it's a community development financial institution. It might be, I think it's also a minority depository institution as well. But he's talking about how his bank and the model of certain organizations and companies like Netflix and Goldman Sachs are creating the model in regards to dispersing income in financial investments to Black communities nationwide. So it starts off talking about how both of these companies bet big on Black-controlled financial institutions, one of his, being one of those institutions. So this was an interesting stat from Bill. So it states, Black firms are twice as likely to apply for financing at credit unions and 3 times more likely to seek financing at CDFIs than their white counterparts, a 2019 Federal Reserve survey found. Black banks originate a substantially higher proportion of mortgages and small business loans to Black borrowers than non-minority banks, according to the FDIC as well. Later on in the article, he says, yet despite their demonstrated ability to deploy capital successfully in often overlooked places, Black-controlled financial institutions grapple with capital challenges similar to the communities that they actually serve. From 2001 to 2018, the number of Black-owned financial institutions declined by more than half, leaving just 21 Black-owned banks in the United States, reported by CNBC. Not one manages over $1 billion, even though a recent merger between Broadway Financial and City First Bank could likely change that. Likewise, white-led CDFIs are more than twice the size as Black-led CDFIs. So he goes on to talk about how these deposits, like by companies like Netflix and Goldman Sachs, have been transformational for their communities. He gives an example of a city, a small town in rural Mississippi. He states the significance of these deposits in places like Itta, a rural town in the Mississippi Delta where Hope is the town's only financial institution, cannot be overstated. Here, the total deposit base is roughly $1.2 million, hardly enough to meet the small business, mortgage, and consumer loan demands of its residents. Just 5 fully insured deposits of $250,000 would exceed the total available deposits in communities like Itta, importing life-changing capital into a place where institutional barriers continue to impede the ability of Black residents to build wealth. And he goes on to talk about some COVID relief as well. He given another stat: the Wall Street Bank. Let me see, what bank are these talking about? I think Goldman Sachs. There we go. So the Wall Street Bank extended a $85 million credit facility as well as grant funding to Hope, enabling Hope to make over 3,000 PPP loans totaling $85 million through April or from April through August. For context, during normal times, Hope makes roughly 50 business loans in the entire year. I think this is a good symbiotic relationship or a good relationship between some of the big banks that are on Wall Street and the CDFIs that are in existence. The lack of capital has been one of the reasons why Black communities haven't been able to grow and thrive. And any infusion of capital, these investments that they're making, it's not charity, it's investments that these organizations, these companies are making, I think lead to positive outcomes for everyone involved. So shout out to the brother who wrote this article. So let me find his name again, Bill Bynum, down in Mississippi at Hope Credit Union. The next article comes from the Atlanta Tribune, and it was written by Joe Biden, so Vice President Joe Biden, or former Vice President Joe Biden, and a good chance of actually being president in a couple of months. The article is entitled, "My Plan to Lift Every Voice in Black America." So he goes through, of course, part of it's giving political speech, but I found a few of the paragraphs to be enlightening into the way that he's either thinking about or, at the very least, messaging, his campaign to the Black community. So here it says, today there are Americans all across the country, especially Black Americans, who are exhausted and hurting, who are disappointed by a system that never seems to deliver for your communities, who are sick and tired of a cycle where in good times, Black communities lag behind, and in bad times, they get hit first and hardest, and in recovery, they take the longest to bounce back. He then goes on to talk about President Trump. President Trump wants to paper over the living wound of racism. He's issued executive orders and established a new national commission designed to whitewash our history and deny the daily reality of being Black in America. He actively appeals to white supremacists and fans the flames of hatred and division in our country because he thinks it benefits him politically. He ignores the most basic job of every president, the duty to care for all of us, not just those who voted for him. Later on, he talks about a commitment to nominating a Black woman to serve on the Supreme Court. In addition to that, Black wealth for families of color and passing it down. That's something he's talking through. Closing the racial wealth gap is one of the most powerful ways we can build real equity in our society, and it's going to require a full court press. That's why my Lift Every Voice plan is a comprehensive agenda to take on the range of issues that drive inequality in Black America. And he talks about a few of these. So housing discrimination, like redlining, how families are judged in terms of who's creditworthy and who's not, and providing a $15,000 down payment tax credit to help millions of young Black families to buy their first home. So check this out on Atlanta Tribune. I would also check out both plans from President Trump and also from former Vice President Biden as well, if you want to learn more. And of course, check out our boys' plan at the Black Financial Channel and the Financial Juneteenth Cube in terms of his thoughts and recommendations as well. The next article is somewhat of a follow-up article on one of the press releases that I talked about yesterday. I thought it was like a one-time thing in terms of Pepsi, but it looks like Pepsi has a larger initiative as it relates to getting more Black people in the restaurant space. So today's article, the title is National Urban League launches Black Restaurant Accelerator Program, powered by $10 million grant from PepsiCo Foundation. The program will fuel Black-owned restaurants by providing capital, training, and also mentorship. So they joined forces with the Black Restaurant Accelerator, which will boost approximately 500 Black-owned businesses over the next 5 years. The PepsiCo Foundation is providing $10 million in grants to fund the program, which will provide current and aspiring Black restaurateurs with access to capital, training, mentorship, as I mentioned before. There's a quote in here from Mark Morial, the president and CEO of the National Urban League. This is a game-changing program that will provide Black restaurateurs with access to business building resources tailored to meet their specific needs. Our understanding of the local business environment and community, paired with subject matter expertise from the Pepsi team, members will give business owners a leg up as they look to grow. Restaurateurs interested in receiving updates can go here, and there's a link actually in the article if you would like to learn more. But Pepsi's doing a few other things. Like yesterday, I talked about the pathways to Black franchise ownership for those who may want to own a restaurant franchise. Black Restaurant Week. They set up an advisory council with different chefs and also Black entrepreneurs. These efforts are part of the $400 million commitment PepsiCo made over the next 5 years to advance racial equity within the company, industry, and communities it serves. So, there we go with Pepsi. The last article today comes from Bloomberg. And this is an op-ed from a person by the name of Marcus C. Mundy. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, but Marcus Mundy out of Portland, Oregon. And it states, to lift up communities of color, fix public transit. A proposed payroll tax on the Portland ballot invests in Black and brown communities, but corporations like Nike that say they support racial equity oppose it, so oppose the initiative. I agree with this article in regards to his underlying thesis in regards to what's next for the movement and what's next in regards to dismantling systemic racism. Marcus Mundy states in this paragraph, policies as mundane as infrastructure and accessibility represent the next frontier in our struggle. The fight for fairness and equity lives in our tax, social, and urban policies, perhaps even more than in our words and rhetoric. While not glamorous, these policies offer communities of color the access to education and economic opportunity to lift themselves up, the benefits of which pave the path to higher economic status and build political power that is desperately lacking. So I think that's a good summary of his way of thinking, and one that I actually agree with. This measure, so now we're getting into the Get Moving 2020 campaign. This measure, Get Moving 2020, would fund a range of transportation improvements, including expanding and electrifying our bus network and light rail system and providing free transit passes to youth. It would also add sidewalks, crosswalks, streetlights, and safe routes to school to ensure that our families can safely walk, bike, ride, and roll around our region. The investments made would address historic inequities in a way never seen before in our region. There's a stat here. So people of color are more likely to die from being killed by a car and more likely to be a transit dependent, even though they are also more likely to live far away from transit services. And you see this as gentrification happens. You'll notice in many major cities, gentrification is happening along transit routes as more people are moving back to the city. The richer you are, the more you have to pay to actually have an easier pathway to work, which has usually historically been in city centers. But he also talks about in this article that he's been getting opposition from companies like Nike, and I think the other one might have been TurboTax or something like that, or Intel, Intel was the other business that was proposing it. So he says, let's be clear, this kind of careful, intentional investment we need now to make this a more equitable region. The money has to come from somewhere, and in this case, it would come from a modest 0.75% payroll tax on businesses that have more than 25 employees. Unfortunately, this measure faces unexpected opposition led by one of our own regional Fortune 500 companies, Nike. This is the same company that made a show of its stance against racism in recent ads that said, "Don't turn your back on racism," and feature Colin Kaepernick taking the knee. So Nike and other organizations aren't really in support of this measure because it increases, the amount of money they actually have to pay in taxes. And no matter how much Nike and others talk about racial justice and racial inequities, and they would use it in marketing campaigns like with Colin Kaepernick. When it comes to hardcore numbers, that's something that you have to watch out for because at the end of the day, these are still businesses. Politicians are still politicians, and everyone is looking out for their interest when it's all said and done. But those are my 5 articles for today. Please, before you get out of here, make sure you like, share, subscribe to the Financial Juneteenth channel if you would like to receive more information like the information that I was sharing today. Also, let me know how I'm doing with the FJT5. Is this a segment that you would like for us to keep doing? And if not, let us know. If so, let us know as well. We'll be going for another 3 weeks. And if you all continue to like it, we'll push forward and make this a standard part of our rotation. So on behalf of the Financial Juneteenth channel, my name is Lawrence Watkins. Take care, be blessed, and have a wonderful day. All right, bye-bye.